Alright, what's going on everyone? Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be continuing the story of my life up to where I currently am today, with the latter half of my childhood. Alright, in this video, the story is actually going to pick up right where my previous video ended. No, it was not chapter 1. The video in question was the video about my dog McAllister. I should say my previous dog McAllister. Spoiler alert for the video if you haven't watched it. Anyways, McAllister had been very sick for a couple months at this point. He tragically passed after a stint with kidney failure. So, me being the 5-year-old boy that I was at the time, I was very, very heartbroken at the news. Alright, so after a couple of months, we were in the market for a new dog. When we visited one of the local pet stores, we saw these two beautiful white miniature schnauzers. Well, we did end up holding the smaller one that day, but we left empty-handed without a new dog that day. So 2 weeks later, we returned to the same pet store, where we found the dog that we had held just a couple weeks prior to this visit, and everyone in the family was ready for a new dog. Well, everyone except for me. Me personally, I was still grieving at the loss of McAllister. So when we were approaching the counter with what would be our new dog, I was crying, "I don't want a dog!" I was not having it that day. And if you ask my parents, they would say we were pretty lucky to actually wind up with a new dog that day. So, as we were heading home, my parents decided to let me name our new dog. So, I decided on the name Casey. She was named after my favorite baseball player at the time, Cleveland Indians third baseman Casey Blake. Luckily, Casey is a unisex name, because if it had not been if Casey was not a unisex name, that'd be a little bit weird. Fortunately, it did not take long for Casey to start growing on me. We actually became friends later that evening, and as we were running around in the backyard. Speaking of running around in the backyard, anytime I heard the song Move Along by the All American Rejects when I was about that age. Oh man, did I have quite the energy boost. Man, did I get excited whenever I heard that song. Alright, so I was in so this was right around the time where I started losing my teeth. And of course, I grieved it. Yes, I was so much of a weakling back when I was this age that I cried when I lost my first tooth. I kid you not. I actually scream cried. That was my favorite tooth! Gosh. That's still one of my parents' favorite stories. I was in school at this time, and luckily I had already started making friends, many of whom I still talk to this day. I do remember being told when I was growing up that friends that you have when you're that young and when you're in high school you usually don't stick around very long, but personally I've just found that to not be the case. Luckily, I hope I didn't just jinx myself, so knock on wood. I was pretty young when my parents found out that I actually have a stutter. We have sought after therapy for it, and it went away for a little while, but came right back just like a cockroach. You try to kill it, it won't die. So, to prove to those who do not know me that I have a stutter, I'm not going to do a whole lot of video editing to this video. And you will likely see that I pause and end up repeating some things I've said quite a bit. My stutter is also the reason why I tend to bounce around. My eyes tend to bounce around in the room a little bit. And that's also why I have a tendency to read from my phone. Alright, so do you guys remember for the last episode of this series when I told you that I have Hashimoto's? Thyroiditis? Well, it turns out that actually caused my learning to be impaired, as well as the rest of my... Yeah, like, this Hashimoto has actually slowed down my learning about as easily as it slowed down the rest of my body. So, all throughout school, grade school through college, I've had what's known as an individualized education plan, or IEP for short. My brain processed information at a slower rate than normal, well, for kids of my age when I was young. And more often than not, I did not. More often than not, not especially as I started growing up. I found that I did not need my IEP as much as I did when I was in elementary school. For the record, I still I still have my IEP with me, following me through college. Luckily, I've not had to use it very much. Alright, so that will conclude today's video. Yeah, that was not quite as long as last time's, or as episode 1. If you found this video enjoyable, well, drop a like, leave a comment, and stay tuned for episode 3, where I talk about my middle school experiences. Oh boy, middle school. Bye, guys.